Yeah, we're at time. So hello everyone and welcome to today's Grants and Sponsored Research Initiative, or GRIT seminar, hosted by the Research Program on Children in Adversity, the RPCA at the Boston College School of Social Work. My name is Teresa Betancourt. I am the Salem Professor of Global Practice at the School of Social Work, and I direct the RPCA. This seminar series was founded as part of the U19 Youth Forward Implementation Science Hub that is funded by the National Institute of Mental Health and their global network of U19 scale-up hubs focused on implementation science. Our other partners in this work include the Essence and Shine U19 hubs and the University of Rwanda Center for Mental Health. So before I welcome today's speaker, I'd like to announce that we have a great lineup of speakers this fall. Be sure to put these on your calendar. On November 16, Sunan Bhattacharya, the Vice Provost for Design and Innovation at Boston College, will be discussing human-centered design, the what, the why, the how. On December 14, we have Dr. Eve Puffer from the Duke University Global Health Institute, who will present on family-centered and community-based approaches to global mental health and meeting children where they are. Also, I'd like to announce that our program is recruiting for a few PhD and master's level positions. So please visit our website and follow us on social media in order to register for upcoming seminars, stay updated on programs, and learn more about job opportunities. So without further ado, I'm pleased to introduce today's GRIT speakers from the U19 Essence Hub, Dr. John Naslund, Azaz Khan, and Ritu Shrivastava. The Enabling Translation of Science to Service to Enhance Depression Care, or Essence Hub, is one of 10 prestigious National Institutes of Mental Health funded U19 scale-up hubs. Their work focuses on involving the use of digital technology for scaling up evidence-based mental health interventions delivered by community health workers in the state of Madhya Pradesh, India. Essence is jointly run by Harvard Medical School and the Department of Health and Family Welfare of the government of Madhya Pradesh, India. And John Naslund is one of the scientific leads of Essence, as well as an instructor of global health and social medicine at Harvard Medical School, and expert in psychiatric epidemiology, implementation science, social disparities research, and digital mental health. Azaz Khan holds a master's degree in psychology and is presently pursuing a doctoral degree in psychology in India. He's leading the digital intervention component of the Essence project. And last but not least, Ritu Shrivastava is trained in public health and social work and has been working in mental health research and implementation projects for the past 4 years. Currently, she's leading the digital platform of the Essence project. So we're so grateful to have you all with us today. Thank you very much, John, Azaz, and Ritu, and I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you very much, Teresa, and thank you, Tesla, for the invitation to present at this seminar. So I will start off with just a brief introduction of what the Essence Project is and why we are engaged in this work. And then I will turn it over to Azaz to present the development of our program, our digital platform, which I'll get into in just a second here. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, hang on. And how about now? Great. Well, really delighted to be here and to talk about this work. And I think, so our goal really today is just to describe our approach to developing a training program for non-specialist health workers. And I'll get into a little bit of the background about why this is an important topic and why our project is engaged in this work. So I think most everyone on this call probably is aware that mental disorders are a leading cause of disability worldwide. And we know that the global burden of mental disorders is likely largely underestimated, actually, the true impact of mental disorders worldwide. And we know that the result is that most individuals worldwide don't have access to adequate mental health care. In the context of what's happening now with the COVID-19 pandemic, this is likely to be further exacerbated. And this gap in available care is even more severe in low resource settings. So I always think it's important to highlight some of the drivers of this, what we call the treatment gap. So this has been the term in the literature for the last 15 years or so, but recently it's been really been a transition towards thinking of it as a care gap, because really the availability of services for mental health care extends far beyond just a single episode of treatment with a psychiatrist or a psychologist. There's a great deal of care required in other aspects of daily life. But it's important to think about what are some of the drivers of this care gap. And The reason I want to highlight this is why is it important to think of unconventional models for addressing this gap. So we can think of some of the drivers. We know that mental health care is often not considered a high priority in many countries and many health systems. There's a great deal of stigma, negative attitudes towards mental health. So these are, some of the major contributors. We also know there's competing demands, and I think that's certainly true now with the COVID-19 pandemic, where we see that mental health likely is not being prioritized, and we know that it's often pushed to the side, and we know that it will be something very likely to worsen over time. So these contribute to what we know as the care gap. So it's I think expanding upon that earlier term around treatment gap. And the result is really poor quality of life for individuals who live with mental disorders, a real severe impact on their families and their functioning, and then really overall contribution to greater disability. So what I think is really important to highlight, though, is that this gap is also driven along the lines of social determinants. We know that the gap is certainly worse for those facing social and economic disparities, and other various factors as well. What I think is really important to highlight, though, so the impact can be quite severe on individuals and their communities, and can also contribute to human rights abuses and other forms of discrimination. But really, this is a failure to implement evidence-based interventions in real-world settings. I think what's really important when we think of mental health is that we know that there are treatments that work well, and they can have sustained benefits for long periods of time, and they can help individuals get back to everyday functioning. But it's not really the lack of knowledge that's the challenge here. I'm going to just quickly run through a number of the evidence-based programs we've seen in many, many different countries, focused on task sharing, so finding alternate ways to deliver evidence-based treatments in primary care settings. And much of this I'm highlighting because this is really the foundation of the work that we're involved in with the Essence Project, is how to take these brief psychological treatments that we know work well in primary care settings that can be effectively delivered by community health workers, by lay counselors, and then how to scale up the delivery of these types of programs. We also know that these work very well in low and middle income countries, which I think is really important, because often there's concerns that programs that are based on psychological treatments that are developed in higher income settings may not actually work well in a lower resource setting. And that is not actually true. When they're adapted to the local culture and context, they actually work very well. And recent meta-analyses have actually showed that some of the potential impacts are even greater in terms of effect sizes for treating things like depression or anxiety in primary care settings in lower resource settings. We also know that there's good return on investment. So I think that's the other thing too. We know that these programs, when they are delivered and scaled up, can have significant benefits for health systems in terms of return on investment. And that's really attributed to individuals being able to resume everyday activities and functioning. But as I mentioned, the gap is pretty severe. There's virtually 0% coverage of these treatments in most settings, including in high income countries as well. There's very low coverage of brief psychological treatments in primary care. So we need to think beyond conventional approaches. And that's what really gets us to the work that we're going to talk about today. And technology is really something that we're especially interested in. What role can technology play in supporting the scale up of these evidence-based brief psychological treatments for depression and other mental disorders? So this is advocated by the World Health Organization. How can we leverage technology to support and train community health workers? So this is something that has been a key goal of the World Health Organization as well, and is one of the key objectives of our project. So I'd like to just briefly introduce Bhopal. So Sangath is an NGO in India, a pioneer in mental health research and a leading research organization in many of the largest studies ever conducted in mental health globally, and in particular in task sharing. Sangath Bhopal, so Bhopal is located here in the center of India. I always try to introduce where Bhopal is and what it's well known for. So Bhopal is a part of India that has many lakes. It's a more rural part of India in the center. There's, of course, many historical monuments. There's also tigers in Madhya Pradesh, is the tiger state in India. So there's the most tigers in the state. As I mentioned, many historical monuments. But it's also a very rural state, and it's also one of the more underdeveloped states in India. So access to care is a real challenge. Many parts of the state are difficult to access in terms of geography. It also has many diverse ethnicities and cultures in the state. So it's quite, in terms of comparing it on human development indicators, is much lower than, say, other more industrialized states in the country. And it makes it adding additional challenges for delivering mental health care in primary care settings. So this is just to give you an idea of the continuum of mental health care delivery, and really where we focus our work right now with Essence. We are looking at all of these different components of the jigsaw, but right now we're going to really present this first part, and in particular how to train health workers. So if we think of the continuum for mental health care delivery, starting with training and assuring competency, and then how do you provide ongoing supervision and support. But we're starting here with just the training component. So this builds on several years of work from our team in Bhopal, working closely with community health workers. And I think what's really important is just to emphasize that there really is a demand and a recognition of mental health challenges in the rural communities. So I think this is something that has consistently emerged over the last several years that our team has worked in the region, and as well as over the last 2 years with the Essence Project, is that there's a very clear recognition that depression, that suicide risk, that these are very, these are very serious concerns within communities, and community health workers who really represent the backbone of the health system and the primary drivers of primary healthcare delivery are well aware of these concerns. Yet they often feel helpless, not knowing exactly what to do about them. Most of the health workers we've talked to, and this is through dozens of focus group discussions and qualitative interviews, are very, very aware of things like suicide and have family members or relatives who have experienced these concerns. So there certainly is a demand and a recognition. And I think that's a really important thing to highlight. So this is not something that is not known in the communities. So as Teresa introduced, Essence is one of the U19 scale-up hubs. This is just a quick map of where these hubs are located. So all funded by the National Institute of Mental Health. And Essence is one of 2 hubs based in India. And again, as I mentioned, our goal is around building workforce capacity for treating depression in primary care. So our work started by, first of all, recognizing that there isn't, first of all, a demand for training, but then what about using technology to support training? And some of the need for the use of technology to support training really comes from the fact that there are not enough professionals to actually lead the trainings. We know we don't have enough trained psychologists or master trainers such as Azaz, who will present the work developing the program, to actually go around and train the thousands of health workers across the country. So to try to actually build workforce capacity at scale, it's just simply not something that even a train the trainer model would take many years to eventually scale up. And technology needs to play a role in supporting this. I think another thing to highlight, there's also a demand and an interest in using technology for training among health workers. And this was part of our early formative research, just right at the start of the Essence Project, was trying to basically understand if there's feasibility and acceptability of using a smartphone device for facilitating training. So this started with a series of design workshops and storyboarding activities, thinking about how would you get content onto a mobile device, how would you make that work in a rural area with poor network connectivity, and then how would you adapt it so it's both culturally and contextually relevant for the target community health workers. One of the things to highlight, that there's a lot of interest in technology. I think this is another incredibly validating part of our work, is that technology actually is seen as something that could facilitate training. And this was directly from the words of the community health workers, because just to give a bit of background, the trainings are actually a very cumbersome thing. They have to travel very far from their homes to attend sort of a central training in a central facility. They're usually residential, so they're there for like up to 6 days usually. It's not something that they're typically excited to do. It takes them away from their families and their other responsibilities at home and other activities. So it actually would be highly desirable to have training that they could do from a device at home. We also know that training using digital platforms is increasingly important now in the context of the pandemic. So just some of the things that we learned through our initial formative research was trying to think about how do we get the content onto the devices in an interesting way? How do we make sure these devices will work in an area with low connectivity, as I mentioned? And then more importantly, how do you make sure the content is interesting and engaging? And just to highlight what the content is, before I turn it over to Azaz, it's just taking an evidence-based brief psychological treatment, a manual. I think everyone is pretty familiar with a paper-based manual. How do you turn that into a digital platform? So this slide drastically oversimplifies what we did, and I'm going to turn it over to Azaz to explain it in more detail. But it's essentially taking these paper-based manuals and getting them onto a mobile app that is both interesting, engaging, and can achieve the goals of our program in terms of establishing competencies among the community health workers. So Azaz, I'll turn it over to you to walk us through the development of the digital training.
Thank you, John. Can you please stop your...
Oh, yes. Yeah, I have to do that.
So thank you, John, and good morning, everyone. So I will be talking about the designing and development of HEP training intervention and learning management system, and my colleague Ritu will demonstrate learning management system and mobile app. So we contextualize and design and translated evidence-based brief psychological treatment called the Healthy Activity Program into a digital intervention for training non-specialist health workers in rural setting of Madhya Pradesh, India. So these are the steps which we follow to develop HEP digital training. So we started desk-based review of healthy activity program and counseling relationship manual, which helped us to understand the core principle of HEP treatment. Information, knowledge, and skills are required to deliver this treatment. And then we used original healthy activity program blueprints with some modification and changes. So initially we we did some modification and sequencing of course modules, and then we shared this blueprint with expert panels, which consist of HEP experienced HEP counselors who were part of the HEP development team in premium trial, and other collaborators to review. And we synthesized their feedback and finalized our blueprint. After completing this exercise, we had a clarity on the course flow and course structure, like 16 modules will be there in the course. And module content will be presented in human talking head videos, role play videos, PowerPoint lecture videos with using icons, images, footage of community and clinical, followed by post videos, engagement quizzes, and module assessment questions. Then in the next step, we formulated a team for content development, which consists of a script writer, experienced HEP counselor, and supervisors. So script writer had not an understanding about context and content. So before moving forward to develop a script, we provided him an orientation on HEP content and context, and we provided him some background of target audience who will be accessing the course. Then he started developing a script, and a script mainly covers narration, dialogues, specification, and direction to the shootings. And while developing a script, intervention team were guiding him to develop context-specific dialogue, narrations, montages, and specifications. Once we have developed these scripts, these scripts was developed in English language, the original language of HEP manual. Then we shared with expert to review these scripts. And while reviewing, expert were focusing on fidelity of HAP content, adhering on core principle of HAP, and appropriateness of using word and specifications, considering with content need and natures. Then we integrated their feedbacks and finalized this script, English script, and scripts were ready to translate in Hindi language. Uh, the English scripts were translated into Hindi, and most of the translation were done by the intervention team. And then we also set up a team of contextualizations, then where we involved two non-specialist health workers from community who have more than 8-year experience of working with the local community. And also we involved two HAP counselors who have delivered this treatment at facility level in the prime project, a previous project of Sangat. Then we conducted 4 days workshop to provided them orientation on HAP content, their role in this process, and our development work, like what we are doing and why we are doing, so that they could develop some basic understanding on HAP content and course objectives. Then we set together and simplified the translated scripts in terms of simplification of the sentences, shorter the bigger sentences, use more localized words from day-to-day conversation, and identify the best fits words for HAP treatment. Then we simplified this script and we shared the Hindi script with the reviewer who knows Hindi very well and who have experience to deliver this training in local areas and supervised HAP counselors. So while reviewing, reviewer was focusing on fidelity of Hindi content and appropriateness of using local word, sentence difficulty, uh, and the word uses for the terminology, HAP treatment terminology. Then we collected reverse feedback and we improved our Hindi script and finalized Hindi script. And the Hindi script was ready here to the digitization process, which is the next process of development. So here we worked with two vendors, film video production companies, and we estimated cost and duration will be required to digitize this content. Then we initially worked with a vendor and developed two sets of prototype of content of two modules. One was introduction to depression and the second one was understanding counseling. And then we tested these two prototypes with 32 non-specialist health workers. So before going to the field, we have also developed a base model of learning management system, and we host these two modules content into the learning management system. And the key learnings of these works were they found training on depression very useful, a high acceptance of digital training as they have freedom to learn, and they found digital platform interesting in both round of testing. In the first round of testing, they shared that the words were used for depression and counseling little bit difficult, and the images or graphics were not related with their context, and the content was not more engaging. So we improved our content. We provided them a list of difficult words, and we also made our content more engaging. And in the second round of testing, we did not receive any major feedback to modify the content and digital platform. So these are the samples of some images and icons which we have developed after first round of testings. So once we have finalized the format and the content and digital platform, then again we set with the vendors, and we equally distributed the script in both the vendors to timely completion of the shooting and finalize the product. And then we sit together and plan our shooting schedule, like where we will be shooting, what location will be required, number of people will be required to shoot montages, number of expert will be required to deliver the lectures, and number of actors will be required to demonstrate role play in front of cameras. Once we have finalized or these things, we have prepared proper plan of the shooting, and then we completed shooting, and we had a multiple rounds of editings to finalize the digital content. And while editing, we have also developed PowerPoint presentation lecture videos and images and icons for post video engagement and end module assessment activities. So our formative works we have published in Asian Journal of Psychiatry. And once we have completed all the digital content and the materials of engagement activities and assessment activities, then we started developing our learning management systems. So we had chosen Moodle platform to host our digital content and deliver our digital training, because it's open source learning management system, and it provides multi-functionality like tracking learners progress and their progress metrics, a customized user interface, and customized dashboard. So we choose this learning management platform to customize our learning management system. And then we worked with an Indian IT companies to customize this platform and learning mobile app. So also we create, once they have developed or customized learning management system as per our requirement, then we have created a course structure into learning management system. And also we have developed some learning management system related content like course introduction, module introduction, FAQs, etc. And also we have worked on the support mechanism, like we listed the type of notifications will be required during the course. We created email for support, and we hired 2 mobile number for a helpline, course helpline. And also we hired message services to send OTP. And once we have ready with learning management system, then we uploaded our digital content, and we created post video activities and end module assessments. And then we tested this version with 12 individuals from outside the team. We invited them in our office. We provided them mobile phone with course app and internet connectivity we provided, and we gave them instructions to how to access the course. And after 4 days, we have conducted FGDs, and we collect their feedbacks and insight to improve the content and digital platform. Basically, their feedbacks were on technical part and a little bit on content as well. Like in technical, they were facing some problems in logging and log out and course registrations and slow downloading of the content, and just facing problem to accessing to doing post video activities. And in the content part, they have reported that some videos are uploaded in misplaced wrong places, and to improve reading materials as well. So we informed our vendors to modify to modification in learning management system as well as mobile app to improve the quality of the digital platform. And we also worked on improving content, and we have listed out the videos and all the materials to upload in proper manner in the course structure. Then the refined version we have taken to test out with the non-specialist health workers, and we have recruited 42 non-specialist health workers and provided them mobile phone and 4 weeks time to access this course. And after 4 weeks, we have conducted a FGD with them. Out of 42, 26 were present in the FGD, and they have reported uh, challenges or their suggestion to improve digital platform and content. And these were the major challenges which they were reported, like they were facing internet connectivity issues, so they were not able to download the course materials, and some of them were using difficulty in how to operate this mobile phone and how to navigate the course to access uh, the course content. And some of them also suggested to have some additional support mechanism to finish the course in timely manner. So uh, for the connectivity issues, we have downloaded all the course material, and it is now available offline in the course. So uh, one can one can learn the content with or without internet activities. And we have also designed a 4 hours orientation or digital orientation program. Basic focuses on how to operate mobile phone and how to navigate the course. And for additional support, we have created some remote coaching support and additional technical helpline support. This is the final package of digital intervention. Like, we have total number of 85 videos, and the course scene time is 7 hours 40 minutes, and we have total number of 260 quizzes. And we have published our designing and development of HAB digital training in August 2020, and randomized pilot trials paper in September 2020. So these were about the designing and development of the HAB digital training, and now my colleague will demonstrate the learning management system and HAB. Over to you, please.
Thank you, Azaz. Thank you, Azaz. Could you please stop sharing your slides? Greetings to everyone. Okay. So I'll be showing on the digital platform, which Azaz has talked about, that we have developed our own learning management system and our own Sanghas learning management system, where we are hosting our course content and digital training. So as you can see my screen, this is our learning management system interface. This is the admin interface, and many of the Sangat courses are listed over here, and these are the courses which are currently being run, or some of are already closed or we have already launched. So I'll directly go to our healthy activity program, a training program for ASHA workers. Okay. So yes, so this is our healthy activity program of ASHA workers. Sorry for the language, as we do not have the training content in English over here on the platform. So we have the content in Hindi. So as I already discussed, that we have converted entire healthy activity modules into 16 modules. So we have the list of those modules over here. So we have designed our content and uploaded on the learning management system in some structure. So we have a structure of each module. So each module follows a basic structure, like we have modules. So in each module we have some visual audio content like video lectures and PowerPoint lectures and the role plays lectures, and then we have some interactive quizzes to make a course more engaging, and then we have after each video, or you can say that after each module we have then assessment question, module and assessment question, which is for assessing their knowledge. So I'll walk through one by one. So this is, as you can see, the first module, it is related to understanding depression. What is depression? So I'll click on one activity. So here it is the video, which is and I'll show a bit of it with the time of interest. I'll just play it for everyone. 1 minute. Yes, so this is an example of a high definition video. So this video is about the stories of depression. People are narrating. Okay, so this was an example of video, high definition video of storytelling. This was a story related to depression. She was telling about her story, how she suffered from the depression and how she is living with the depression. So it was about that experience. And I would like to show one more video of. Okay, so which will be related to role play. So, okay, so I'll go to this one. Okay, so this is an example of role play video lecture. Okay, so this was an example of role play kind of video where a counselor is sitting and next to counselor there was a patient and she was sharing her experience with the counselor and they were doing a role play kind of thing. So yes, these were the example of our video lectures, and now I'll go to the interactive questions, how we designed it. So after each video lecture we have interactive questions or quizzes, you can say that, so to make participant more engaged with the course. So yes, let's click on it. Yeah, so here we can see some of the example of our interactive questions. So as you can see, we try to make it more pictorial and colorful and the context is specific, so that participant can relate to it and they can have some fun or they can get engaged with the course while doing this activity. So here, like, this is very simple. You just have to drag and drop kind of activities you have to perform, and then you can choose against the activity, against the color, how whatever you think is the right answer, you can choose according to that. Then same thing you can do over here. You just have to pick and drop. So these kind of interactivity to make them engage with the course, we have designed throughout the course after each video lecture. And then yes, and then after this also we have module and assessment question, which assesses their knowledge, like whatever they have learned throughout the module they can also assess and they can get their review done, like how they have performed and how they are doing, so that they can go back to the course if needed and they can learn. So here also we have designed the combination of questions for them in the one quiz. So one quiz we have combination of filling in the blanks kind of questions, then we then we have multiple choice questions, then we have true false question, and then we also have some match the table kind of questions. So these kind of questions we have designed in each quiz to make it more diverse and to make them perform good in the course, and they can also review anytime, and then they can go back into the course if they think they need to retake entire module if they are not performing well. So yes, so this is our course structure. And apart from this course structure, we have on the platform we have also the tracking system where we can generate the participant reports, and we can extract or export the data in a form of Excel sheet or spreadsheet, and yes, we can track their progress and track their reports. So that feature is also available on our platform. And other than this, we also have, as Azaz already discussed, that yes, we have the notification system where system track participants, and it sends automatic notifications. Suppose if participant is not progressing through the course and it sits idle on the course, so system identify and send the notification as, yes, you are not progressing well. If there's any problem, please reach out to us. And this kind of message is sent. If a participant is having less grade or getting less scores, so also it sends the notification. Okay, so yes, this is it on the course. Yes, okay, so thank you. Over to Azaz or John, or if anyone has any questions on the same.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ritu. So I will just jump into to summarize, I think, and then I'm hoping we can just wrap up in the next couple of minutes to leave time for some questions. I see there are a few questions in the chat, but I want to make sure we have time to address them. So let me see if I can share my screen again. All right. So yeah, so just covering some of the next steps with the Essence project and where we are. So thank you, Azaz, for the overview of the program development, and Ritu for the demonstration. I think I saw a couple questions in the chat, and hopefully I can try to answer them here, or we'll get back to them. But yeah, just to summarize, through our pilot study, some of the key findings, I know there was questions about education level of the community health workers, but one of the key findings from our pilot study was the need to address issues around digital literacy. So for many of the community health workers we're working with, this was their first time using a smartphone. There was certainly an interest in using a smartphone, but recognizing that there are a few things to learn in terms of how to navigate the app. So one of the things we've integrated that Ritu helped develop is a detailed course orientation session. So it's a digital orientation. So basically a group tutorial around how to actually navigate the phone, just some of the basics for navigating the app. So that was one of our key things that we learned through the pilot study. We had initially only had a very brief orientation, but learned pretty quickly that some additional support was needed, because I think from our pilot study, one of the key findings was technical challenges were the overwhelming thing that came up, and how to overcome the technical issues. I think also to highlight too, we use the Moodle platform. The other really key reason is that we're able to have the content hosted entirely offline. And I think that was something that came up through our formative research, and then also in our pilot study, is that the content has to be on the device. The bandwidth in the wireless connectivity is just not strong enough to stream videos directly from the app. And the Moodle platform, in many ways, what we demonstrated, it's a fairly basic platform, but that also has a huge advantage in that you can have it entirely native on the device, so you don't have to be streaming the content. So where you sacrifice potentially some of the more sophisticated digital components that you might see on other mobile apps or other learning management systems, where you lose some of that possible interactivity, you have the advantage of being able to have the content fully loaded onto the device. And for us, that was the primary. If I had to highlight one thing that was critical from our pilot study, was figuring out how to get all the content onto the platform, onto the device, so it could be fully accessible from the device. So this is just a couple screenshots of what the app looks like, and just a little bit more about what the orientation looks like. So the example that Ritu also demonstrated was the web version, but the app is, again, it's outlined. So it is mobile friendly. That was another thing too. Everything has to be mobile friendly. And I think one of the other things to highlight too is that we are using smartphones, not tablets. Tablets are just too, they're too outdated and they're too large to carry around. And it was actually preferable to use a smartphone. But then also the other thing too is the smartphones are a lot faster and they're updated a lot more regularly. So that was another reason why we went with smartphones. And I think that's just something that's the smartphones are technology that are continuously being updated and new ones are being released with new operating systems. So they're much, typically a lot more advanced. And then also lower cost. I better highlight that as well. As Azaz mentioned, our pilot studies, our pilot study findings are published. And that's really, I think, our key elements here. We're identifying the need to have the content offline and how to overcome that challenge, addressing digital literacy challenges, and then the need for coaching. So I saw one of the comments in the chat around coaching, and I think Azaz posted a response. But one of the things that we've identified is the need to have some, not in person, but some human support. So somebody who calls to help you navigate through the content, kind of like a coach that gives you a phone call once a week to see how you're doing with the course content, to help you review the content, and then also using a WhatsApp group to help participants engage with each other and post questions and then get support. And that we found was really helpful in just helping keep people on track. Because if you say, hey, you have 30 days to complete this online course, it's unlikely people will, anyone will actually start right at the beginning and then work on it. But with a coach contacting you constantly, giving encouragement and motivation, we know also from other programs and other types of interventions that this approach can be very effective, and we found a similar observation in our pilot study. So just to highlight where we are now, we have a large RCT. It's ongoing. It was started. We had about 225 ASHA workers, so community health workers, enrolled before the start of the pandemic, and we're very, very relieved that the trial started about two and a half weeks ago. It resumed our trial activities. It was on hold for about 6.5 months. And the trial has 3 arms. So we have the digital training that Ritu presented, enhanced with the coaching. So it's a remote, individualized coaching. We have a member of our team who is also a master trainer call the participants on a weekly basis just for a brief 15 to 20 minutes, just kind of encouragement, motivation, checking how they're doing with the content, offering any support with navigating the content. Then the training on its own, so just the app by itself, and then compared to the gold standard, which is the in-person group training. So we are comparing this to what is considered the routine training approach, which is also the gold standard in training, which is a rigorous in-person training, residential training. So it's a 6-day training where the ASHA workers attend in-person training led by 2 master trainers. So right now we're now at about 267, might be a little higher than this now, but 267 out of our target of 336 ASHAs recruited. And this will continue over the coming months, evaluating the impact of the training on achieving competency in delivering the healthy activity program. So I won't get too into the outcome assessment. I think we'll have to save that for another presentation. And just to highlight where we are, this is just a continuum of where we're hoping this work will lead, is to take basically ASHA workers who have no experience in mental health care delivery, and then to support them towards becoming proficient providers, and then how to offer ongoing supervision and support. So this takes us back to that jigsaw presented at the beginning, but how do we support ongoing care delivery? So this is the first steps around establishing competency and learning the content, but we know that there's much more ahead of us in the road to assuring quality delivery of mental health care. I want to also just highlight this is certainly relevant in the context of COVID-19 pandemic and the importance of, first of all, leveraging technology for building workforce capacity, but also thinking about how to make mental health services available when we know there will be an increased demand in the months and years ahead. Highlighting here that, yeah, technology certainly appears to be a valuable tool and something that we found that is both feasible and acceptable, and now we're in the process of evaluating the effectiveness. And I will just wrap it up there because I know that I want to leave some time for questions, but just want to be sure to acknowledge our team on the Essence project, as well as our funders and our team in both a number of different settings here at Harvard, also at other institutions in the US, UK, and then our team with Sangath. So I will stop there and let's see if there's any questions, and thank you for your attention today.
Thank you so much, John and Azaz and Ritu. This was really fabulous, and I think of great interest to many people that have joined today online. So I want to open it up for questions while we still have a little bit of time. And Tesla, if you could manage the questions, I'd appreciate it.
Can I ask a question out loud as opposed
Yeah.
to in the chat? Okay. Hi, this is Jennifer, and I work with Teresa on the Refugee Behavioral Health Program. And you might know we've been actually trying to do some similar work, digitizing our manual and creating a family-facing compatible app for our intervention. But at the moment, it's much less robust than yours. This is incredibly impressive, and I have a million questions, but just one for now. Could you talk a little bit more about how you created the content specifically for the videos and images that went into the app to make sure that they were culturally appropriate, or, you know, how you ensured that maybe depression was being conveyed in a way that was culturally relevant for an Indian setting as opposed to Western beliefs about that?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. I can just jump in and then I'll turn it over to Azaz. But I think, so to start off, the Healthy Activity Program is essentially a behavioral activation, but it was already adapted for a context in India, although it was adapted for Goa, which is a southern state in India, which is dramatically different in many ways than just in terms of both culture, but also the rural versus urban type of setting. So very different than Madhya Pradesh, but it had been adapted already for a setting in India. What we did with the program, the Healthy Activity Program, so that was based on behavioral activation. So it's essentially the same type of content, which was evaluated in a large trial led by Sona Demijan at the University of Colorado, and she's one of our collaborators on this project as well. But the content was adapted again for the context in Madhya Pradesh. So first it was simplified. So there were a few different steps. The first was taking the manual-based kind of thick academic manual and then turning that to simplify the content, also making changes to the language. And then that went through multiple rounds of review by colleagues of ours that have done a lot of work with community health workers. And then the translation and then adapting it to the local setting. We also work very closely with a group of community health workers to review the content. So Azaz, I'll turn it over to you if you want to comment any more on the cultural adaptation piece.
Okay, thank you, John. Just I will add.
Oh.
Okay, so for contextualization, we have formulated a team, like we involved community health workers, non-specialist health workers while developing, while contextualizing the script and developing images and icons. And also once we have developed, then we have tested these developed materials with the other non-specialist health workers and with who were not part of the development team. And then we collect their feedback as well to refine and make it more context specific.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Great. It looks like we have a few more questions. Maybe we can take one or two just in the interest of time. One participant has asked, what level of education do the trainees need to have?
Yeah, so all of the community health workers have a minimum of 8th standard, so 8th grade education. So literacy is a requirement for this. So we do screen for the education requirement, and then also literacy in our enrollment. But just to highlight, so the original behavioral activation in a US or Western setting, I think in the US or the UK, is typically delivered by someone with a master's level education. That being said, the program was adapted, and for the healthy activity program was delivered by lay counselors with college level education. So taking this a step further, we've had to simplify the content for delivery by a cadre of health workers with a minimum of 8th standards. So typically 8th to 12th grade education are the cohort we're working with.
Great, thank you, John. And another question here is from Ashley, and she writes, can you describe the remote coaching structure? So frequency, duration, etc.
Okay, so
Go ahead, Azaz.
Yes, thank you, John. Remote coaching basically is provided on weekly basis. And the structure is like it's begin with the introduction of a remote coaching, a remote coach and the participants. So before coaching, coach prepares him or herself, like she reviewed the participants' progress in learning management system, and then she called to the participants, and then they both reviewed the last week progress, how they progress or how they learn the course content, how many modules they have completed, and during the completion of module, what problem and challenges they have faced, like technical challenges or content levels challenges. And then they provide support, like they helps them to understand the content if they have any problems, and they also provide a technical support if they are facing any to accessing the course. And then they together plan for the next week, like in the coming week how many modules they are planning to complete, and then they close the coaching sessions. And the duration of coaching sessions about 20 to 30 minutes.
Thank you, Azaz. I think that we are at time now. So I just want to thank the speakers for their time this morning, and to everyone for participating and joining us. If you have additional questions, please feel free to reach out to the RPCA, and we can forward those over to our guests. Teresa, would you like to say anything?
No, I just want to thank the Essence team for this really groundbreaking, leading edge work. We'll all be following in your footsteps, I hope. And we've been shared a number of links of different publications, so we'll try to make those available, as well as the recording of this really wonderful presentation. And I just want to again thank John, Azaz, and Ritu for joining us. And we look forward to next phases and seeing the results of the trial and inviting you back. So thank you so much for being here today.
Hey, thanks very much, Teresa. Thank you, everyone.
All right, take care. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.